Hey everybody, it's Commander Clay. Welcome back to some more update notes, reaction, review, whatever this format is. I've never quite decided. Anyway, before we get to the big one here, we're going to go to the bonus update, which is going to be live next Tuesday, I believe. Let me check that. Yes. That is correct. This is going to be live next Tuesday. We get a few skins. Get the nice home run Heimdall. It's fun. This ugly thing. This skin, and then, this thing here. But we don't care about these anyway. Let's go to balance. Bonus balance. Conduit gem has largely been top performer. Its raw power combined with solid regen and solid upgrades put its direct competitor Sands of Time in a strange spot. Nerfing the regen and magical power both puts more focus on playing around its passive, but gives Sands of Time a better shot at succeeding. Decrease MP5 from 15 to 10. Decrease magical power from 30 to 25. Archmage. Taking the edge off. It's scaling to remove some of that burst damage. Decreased scaling from 2.5 to 2 per stack. And then Pendulum of Ages. Archmage gem was also the go-to choice for upgrading Conduit gem. The raw burst power provided from this item created an extremely bursty late game for mages. Taking the edge. They repeated the same. Okay, guys, good job. Okay, so Pendulum of Ages, we just get increased cooldown reduction from 10 to 20, increased magical power per 10% available mana from 7 to 10. And then Mannequin Scepter, because this item is silly, Mannequin Scepter's adjustments will be in 2 parts. This is important to know. Don't get ahead of yourselves when you read this and you say, well, that's not enough of a nerf. We'll get to it. We originally planned for a single bonus balance adjustment that targeted this item's ability to trade effectively in lane. A decrease in physical procs and lane damage should help bring it more into line, especially to help Warrior's Axe remain competitive against it with its nerfs. However, we saw very quickly this week Mannequin Scepter explode in popularity above other items more than anticipated. With bonus balance already prepared to ship to all platforms, we cannot add to it. However, we have seen the item's usage continue to grow and will be applying an additional nerf in 8.2 launch. See, when I first saw this, that's what I figured, was that this change was coming now, and there weren't more because they had some unanticipated things happen that made them need to nerf it more, but this was already ready to go, so they couldn't add to the nerfs until 8.2 when that comes. We'll see that later. But first round here, decreased physical protections from 15 to 10, decreased bonus damage from 16 to 12. And they actually increased the bonus jungle damage from 3 to 4 times. But I think it was already 4 times. Anyway, so I don't know if that's a typo or not. Yeah, I have to read what they imply from the bonus damage exactly. Anyway, Bluestone now provides 200 health, just to make it a better use option because only a few gods were actually building this. Warrior's Axe is another solo item that we've heard a lot about at the top level of play. This item was not only a solid counter to the tick damage of Mannequin and Bluestone, I don't agree, but was outright good at trading due to the health steal. I still feel like most situations you're building Mannequin and Bluestone, or just not a starter. Moving the flat damage reduction should make matchups against it feel more fair, while a small health increase should offset the nerf from feeling too intense. I feel like we're dealing with some inconsistency here in balance logic, because up here we're talking about bringing this down to keep Warrior's Axe competitive, but we're also going to nerf Warrior's Axe and keep it from being competitive. I don't know, no flat damage reduction, but they added health to it. I don't know why you'd remove the DR when you're not removing that off a Mannequin Scepter. you're just making this a less attractive option now because Mannequin's going to give you more pressure. I don't know. Warding Sigil struggled to see any play as it was too niche, focusing too heavily as a counter to magic damage. We're making it a true tanky option with a slight lean on magical protection. Now provides 10 physical procs, decrease health from 100 to 75. Infused Sigil, the upgrades for both of these items also struggled from both being niche encountering magical damage and Infused Sigil's case, a passive that didn't quite feel impactful enough. Infused Sigil will now trigger more often with more of an extra punch, decrease stack count to detonate from 5 to 4 abilities, increase detonate damage from 400 to 500 magical power. Isn't it just magical damage? Not power, whatever. Typo. Sigil the Old Guard now provides 30 physical procs. I still believe that this item was created to be a specific counter to Cthulhu because the god was too dominant in lane. It may not be true, but it really feels like that's why they put that. War Flag is unique in that it is a starter item that really encourages aggression and controlling the lane to get farm rather than it being generated on its own. The trade-off, especially for 700 gold, felt too intense. A cost reduction will allow supports to have more flexibility with additional consumables and item choices to help them succeed with this item. Now, I haven't used it in ranked, but I played Cerberus support with this and did not encounter a problem with it being 700 gold, so don't know. Benevolent similarly felt punishing in its cost. This item both as supports to sacrifice farm, but also incur a high burden of cost. Bringing this cost down will give more freedom of item choices to supports, 750 to 600. Sentinel's Embrace is too good. Decrease both protections shared between allies on the passive from 120 to 100. So, yeah, you get it. Compassion. Sentinel's Embrace and Compassion are often compared as they do not do similar effects in different ways without any mitigation on its own. The incoming damage from allies was too much of a penalty. An extra 40 magical protections will soften the incoming damage and allow supports to utilize this effect longer. Animosity, because it's Mega Cheese, is no longer deals bonus damage to structures. Now, I don't know why this was specifically an issue with Ymir, but of course Zhonghui and Erlang Shin abused this item ridiculously hard. Some of the cheese is gone. It's still not a bad item though, because it still does the normal amount of bonus damage to other targets, so still pretty good. And Zhonghui can hit it twice anyway, so. Death's Temper had an issue made it not as strong as it should have been, but it also had an issue where it came to gaining stacks. The range on getting a kill was so short, it often felt buggy, feeling like a stack should have been given but not receiving one. The range on this should now feel comparable to other items that stack on kill. Increased range at which you gain stacks from fallen enemies from 30 to 80 units. That's a big buff that makes you actually want to buy the item. Because you can be in the back of a fight and your solo laner and jungler can be in the front and they get a kill and you get an assist, and you're not, and because it's 80 units now, it's a lot more likely you're going to get a stack from that assist. Ratatouille, we don't need to read this because we know what the problem was. This item has 160 power and 10% pin. So they're going to take 20 damage off of it, and somehow that makes a difference. It doesn't really, because you added 10% pin to it. Like, imagine adding pin to an item that does bonus damage when you're below a certain health threshold. Like, the logic is bad here. They should have done both, quite frankly. Should have done this and taken the penetration off. Had some light god balance because Sett is still a pretty high pick that people like right now. So Sett's high base damage combined with strong brawling ultimate makes him a monster at most stages of the game. In particular, this change focuses on his level 5 to 10 range, where Skewer's base damage has come online, and the flat healing of Kingslayer is most impactful. In this window, Sett should be a more manageable threat. Decrease base damage on Skewer from 85 to 285, down to 85 to 265. Little top end nerf. Decrease base healing from 45 to 85 to 35 to 75. So that's 10 at all ranks. There you go. Just a light nerf. They don't want to get too far in the weeds with God balance right now because it's still early. Item balance is much more effective right now, in my opinion, anyway, when you're early on in a new meta, because those tend to define things a lot more at first. Hence, you can see the issue with Mannequin Scepter being picked up on a lot of different gods. It's an obvious problem, so that those kind of things are going to be taken care of before God balance will. Anyway, Cupid really climbed the Hunter ladder with his changes to Heart Bomb in Season 7. Heart Bomb scaling bring a hair too much damage in team fights, while Fields of Love is a constant and difficult to answer threat. The longer cooldown on Fields of Love will lower how often Cupid can burn relics and punish them himself when they are down. Late game, this is still going to be pretty low if you have cooldown, but that's late game though, so you should anticipate that anyway. Heart Bomb decreased scaling from 80 to 75%, 10% on double hit. And then Fields of Love increased cooldown, so yeah. There it is. Okay. Top. And then we go to the next one. Here's the big one, 8.2, Goddess of the Salt Sea. Here she is. I was about, whatever. Yeah, Tiamat, new Babylonian mage, so that means new Pantheon. Your boy Gilgamesh is going to have to wait a little bit to see the light of day, but he'll be coming quite soon. Real quick, Tiamat is a stance switcher. That's important to know. And here is a passive for you. While in flying stance, Tiamat gains health from nearby ally and enemy deaths, less from minions. In ground stance, she gains up to 5 hardened scales damage mitigation that breaks after a certain amount of damage is taken. Normal minions do not provide these. Large heals 40 plus 8 per level. Small heals 5 plus 0.5 per level. Scale mitigation 60%. Shield value 50 plus 10 per level. So is that 15 per scale? Is how we're... No, that's bad math. That'd be 4. So 12? Is that per scale? I assume that's what they mean. This is total if you have 5. So number 1. Primordial Onslaught. Tiamat gathers power, allowing her to fire orbs of energy at the end of the channel. Each orb damages enemies and stops on enemy gods. Hitting the same enemy deals 15% less damage each time to a minimum of 70% reduction. This ability can fire additional projectiles at ranks 3 and 5. Damage is 60 to 100 plus 35%. Cost is 55 to 75. Cooldown 10 seconds. I am not certain what stance these are used in. Does not explain that. Tiamat creates an energy field dealing low damage to enemies in the entire area and then a larger amount in the inner area. The inner area of the field also stuns enemies for a short duration. Area damage 40 to 100 plus 30%. Inner damage 60 to 200 plus 40%. Stun duration 1. Cost 65 to 85. Cooldown 16 down to 12. And then grounding dive, which changes her stance to ground. Tiamat I believe so. Tiamat dives into the fight, landing on all fours, dealing damage and switching to her ground stance. Oh yeah, it tells you right there. This ability also provides Tiamat with 1 hardened scale. Damage is 40 to 200 plus 40%. Cost 40. Cooldown 22 to 14. And you will be noticing a trend here that her abilities don't have massive base damage and have pretty low scaling. That's intentional because first she's a stance switcher and second that's just how they wanted to kid her out because the type of god she is, with the lore and all that, it makes more sense to make her a little bit less focused on damage and more focused on sustain and things like that. So this could be a niche solo laner. Based on that, she may not be nearly that good in mid. So we'll see what happens with that, but I'm feeling more solo lane with her than I am mid. Anyway, Children of Creation. We'll break this down. This is technically one ability, even though we got these down here. We'll explain. Tiamat is able to summon one of her children onto the battlefield, summon serpents that travel down lanes and act as minions, summon beast, Kusariku. I don't know how I'm supposed to say any of these weird names. Who stands guard waiting for enemy gods, and summons Storm Umu Dabrutu, the storm that chases enemies. It says cost 0, cooldown 0, because that is determined by which one you summon. Anyway, serpents. Tiamat places a pit of creation, which spawns serpents of Tiamat that act like minions traveling down lanes and attacking nearby enemies. 2 serpents spawn every 10 seconds, and deployable creatures 3 waves before disappearing. Oh, is that passive? That's weird. Enemies hit by the serpents have their damage done reduced. Enemies can also stand on the pit to destroy it early. Okay. So it's just a persistent thing you put on the ground that throws out these guys periodically. And apparently you can remove it early if you stand on it. So damage is 10 plus 8% of your magical power. Damage reductions 10 up to 30%. Hit points 2. Minion damage 1 HP per loss per 3 hits. Cost 50 up to 70, and I imagine, yeah. So they do, that's minion damage they take from minions. From gods, they take a full point for any hit, I assume. And then cooldown is 46 up to 30 seconds because it's persistent and has to have a rather long cooldown. And then we get to summon beast. Tiamat calls forth Kusariku, who stands guard at the target location. If an enemy god comes too close, he charges, slows, and attacks them. Charge damage is 30 up to 90 plus 20%. Of your power, basic attack damage 15 up to 35 plus 15%. Magical power slow is 80 seconds for 1 second. Incredibly significant. That will be toned down, I'm sure. Health is 250 plus 100 per level. Ooh, these guys get big. Damn. Lifetime is 30 seconds. Cost is 50 down to, or up to 70. Cooldown is 46 down to 30. So at max rank, you can get it as soon as it despawns. Before that, you have to wait extra time. So yeah, that's interesting. Our time, and then we get down. Tiamat calls the power of Umu Dabrutu, conjuring a violent storm that follows enemies before knocking them upward and dissipating. Initial damage 30 up to 90 plus 30% of your magical power. Damage 10. Persistent damage, I guess. 10 up to 30 plus 10% of your magical power every 0.4 seconds. Lifetime 4 seconds. Cost 50 to 70. Cooldown 46 to 30. So I imagine, by the way, this is going to cast probably similarly to 72 transformations, where at one range you get this guy, next one you get this guy, and then you get this guy. So I think that's how it's going to work. I have no reason to believe that that's the case. Anyway, next ability, which I believe is a ground stance. Tiamat fires a cone, dealing damage and slowing enemies hit. Okay, so actually, let me break this down real quick. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm slightly confused. There's an extra ability here. How does this work? Because that would switch depending on what stance you're in. And then these two would be equivalent of these two abilities here in the different stances. And then you've got this. So which would be, this should be a persistent ability in any stance, right? Unless it's not, which is super weird. I don't know how they're doing this. Anyway, Tiamat fires a cone dealing damage and slowing enemies hit. Minions, large monsters, or buff holders hit under her health threshold are executed. Tiamat can immediately consume her serpent and beast pets to provide a hardened scale. When Tiamat consumes a buff holder, she gains their buff while the original can still be picked up by allies. This is broken. Let's take the damage buff and give your ADC the damage buff. Everyone gets a damage buff. What is this? Tiamat can only have one consumed and one regular buff at a time. Wait, so she can have two at once. Yes, that's fair. What is because she's primordial creation goddess that she can just do what she wants, I guess. That's how it works. Damage 60 up to 200 plus 60% of your power. Slows 25% for 1.5 seconds. Execute threshold is 30 up to 50% of the health of the okay. Cost of 55 up to 75, cooldown 12, 8 seconds. Why is it 8 seconds? At max rank. Nerf this, please. I can already tell that's too strong. Anyway, Outburst. Tiamat slams the ground, creating seismic rifts that erupt in succession in front of her, damaging and knocking up enemies hit. Damage 50 to 170 plus 50%. Cost 65 to 85. Cooldown 14 up to down to 10. The rising flight, Tiamat rears up, sending out a blast of energy, dealing damages to enemies hit and sending herself backwards as she returns to her flying stance. Damage is 40 up to 200 plus 40%. Cost is 40. Persistent. Cooldown is 22 down to 14. And then this weird thing, I can't figure out how these abilities are going to work because based on what I've seen, she's a stance switcher with 5 abilities and that doesn't make sense. We'll have to see. Tiamat creates a celestial outburst around her, dealing initial damage and damage over time effect to every enemy nearby. Tiamat also gains 1 hardened scale per enemy got hit. Damage is 60 up to 180 plus 30%. Burn damage is 10 up to 50 plus 5% of your magical power every 0.5 seconds. Burn duration 2 seconds. Cost 100. Cooldown 20. Got your skins down here. Why? This one's weird. That one's fine. Pizza Man. Blah, blah, blah. And here are these Tmat skins, which are pretty nice. I do like the way they went about the design, so you can tell you can still tell that she's a female goddess, you know, based on the character design, but it's still very unique and very nice. We do like that. We like purple around here, so there it be. Release schedule, that's the 9th. That's the 23rd. March 9th is bonus. More info coming. Quality of life, I don't care. But now you can see can be upgraded at level X for the starters a lot easier. Just more obvious text. Also, roll trade. Increase cooldown from 8 to 12 seconds on initiating a roll trade. Esports and live streams hub. Don't care. Don't care. Don't care. Hotfix. Currently fixed. Freya fixed an issue where she could do more damage than intended with Mannequin Scepter. Aphrodite fixed an issue where lovebirds was hitting enemies outside the hit area. Gem of Focus fixed an issue where this item would make it take more damage instead of less damage. That's what? Conquest. Remove the unintended jungle conqueror mechanic. PlayStation. Fix multiple instances of issues crashing. Loading frames fixed an issue where players were given the wrong rank during loading. Or wrong rank loading frame. Fixed an issue where the walking blight skin was using base FX in some cases. Rage fixes an issue where this item would lose 10 physical power when it evolved. What? Audio fixed an issue where mana cost did not match intended values. And performance. Applied a series of changes to SMITE's backend tech to improve the ability to support more players and better track match manager issues. Hopefully that will work out quite well. It seems to have been working, actually. Bug fixes. Lots of things. I really, don't care about UI bugs. Internal gameplay, global healing reduction. Fixed an issue where the new brawling rule is affecting mana heals and other resources. Okay. Conquest, increased timer precision for the first spawn of each jungle camp. Greater scorpions, fixed an issue that caused these scorpions to scale faster than intended and stop scaling after 10 minutes. Fixed an issue where their affects around buff camps would not always play. Fixed an issue where the Greater Scorpion Gulf Fury's pit would display a HUD health bar. This is intended to only have an in-world health bar. The Scorpion fixed an issue where the NPC was scaling much slower than intended. Void Camp fixed an issue with Alpha Chimera scaling that caused it to provide 6 more XP than intended. Whoa. Fixed an issue where that base doors cause whatever. I don't want to read fixed an issue for the next 10 minutes. Thanks. So I think I'm going to skip some of this because this is not interesting. This one does matter though. Janus re-implemented the change to his ability 1 that was meant for 8.1. The ability will now allow for Janus and any enemies hit by the banished CC to be hit as they fall after exiting the portal. Janus and enemies will not be hittable while entering. Very good. And starter things. Bumbus Hammer fixed an issue where God, half of this thing is bug fixes. Fixed an issue where gods could hit allies or other objects to trigger this effect. Paired with this fix, the item will be re-enabled for guardians. This temper fixed an issue where this was not providing bonus basic attack damage. Divine Rune and Brawlers, these were incorrect on 8.1. Both items are intended to apply 30% reduced healing. In game text and game numbers throughout 8.1 have been at 30%. Okay, had an issue of what was stated on the patch notes versus what the game numbers were. Okay, whatever. Spartan Flag fixed an issue where this item's passive was spawning on enemy locations instead of the owner's location. And View Sigil fixed an issue where the item owner was CC'd at the same time as gaining the last stack. The explosion would not detonate. Sacrificial Shroud fixed an issue where this item was damaging gods multiple times on abilities that could be refired. It will also no longer deal damage on toggles. So does that mean doesn't work? Oh wait, this is for sacrificial though. On the okay, that's a different thing I'm thinking of. Never mind. That's fine. Balance. Live with the Goddess of the Salt Sea update on February 23rd. Haha. Conquest updated guide start route. Invaders curse adjusted the area around camps to reduce the effect of bleeding through walls. Invaders curse now covers the area around back harpies. Decreased time active from 1 minute to 35 seconds. So does that mean after 35 it's no longer active? I don't know how this is applied. It's not explained. Laser Scorpion Lane no longer activates an aura of healing while in stand state. Now activates an aura of healing around its leash radius for the team that slays it. The aura lasts 10 seconds and provides a healing buff. So you don't have to try to guess anymore about how long to keep it downed. I guess that's why they did this. So now you just kill it and then you stand in the area. This aura area lasts 10 seconds, provides a healing buff, 10 health per second, lasts 3 seconds, 130 HP max. Then text refreshing, plus 3 more after the fact. Refreshes while inside the leash radius area. Base stats, physical protection reduced from 6 to 2, magical protection increased from 2 to 6. Physical power increased from 28 to 34, XP reward reduced from 41 to 21. Scaling stance decreased max health from 180 to 120. Or from plus 180 to plus 120. That's a very important difference. Enhanced speed buff no longer provides CCR. It shouldn't have probably anyway. I don't know why it did. Now it provides an additional flat 5% movement speed. Well, howdy. Conquest environment added the spectator version of the map. Nice. This has reduced trees and less tall landmarks for better camera visibility. Gameplay version of the map. The main wall behind Fire Giant has been decreased in size so that the Fire Giant scale feels more normal, and so gods flying over it won't clip in the rock. The size of the blocking volume of this area has not changed. Lower the height of jungle trees and other objects that flying gods could clip into. We are currently planning to keeping the jungle tree density as it is. Adjusted the order base arches to not block god vision while using area ultimates like Thor and Ram. Additional set dressing, plants, props, and decorative items have been added. Gilded Arrow. This item no longer marks jungle bosses. Mannequin Scepter Part 2. To reduce the frustration, fixed an issue Mannequin Scepter was dealing magical damage rather than physical damage. And that's a clear problem because it's dealing damage that's different from its use case. Which is not ideal. It means building physical protection against the physical god that built this is not helping you. Which is kind of stupid, right? Because I think it's more intended to be a physical item, even though magicals can use it. I don't know, it's weird. But the main thing here, decrease the attack speed slow from 7% per stack to 3.5% per stack. Cut it in half. So that's good. Still strong. I'm still of the belief that this should have no damage reduction. That should be gone, and Warrior's Axe should have damage reduction. Like Warrior's Blessing used to have when it was around. So, yeah, they still aren't doing that, though, and I think that's the problem. That's a problem. I mean, you've already got 15 prots on it. Why does it need 3 damage reduction? Anyway, God balance. Dansborough responded well to our last round of nerfs, going from a top performer to closer to the middle. We however think he still has some room to climb as players learn the new season. Want to do a small adjustment for the scaling potential of Upper Warriors Rocket. Decrease physical power scaling from 110 to 100% on that ability. King Arthur. Fixed an issue where King Arthur can proc item effects with his basic attacks. He should not be able to do that. Really simple. Baba found a brewing catalyst shoved away in the back of her cabin. She can now brew at speeds never before seen. We have heard feedback on her brew feeling particularly clunky to use. My God, it is. Initially, you felt this delay was important for player reaction time, but given the strength of these potions and the strong sound visual cues that exist for it, the delay mostly got in the way. This should smooth out Baba Yaga's moment-to-moment gameplay. I hated this. Decrease potion brew pre-fire from 0.4 to 0.2. That was so bad. That's the worst thing. Decrease potion brew post-fire time from 0.2 to 0.1 seconds. So that means it took you 0.6 seconds for the thing to be usable. Or to actually, hit the target that it was intended for. It takes you an extra 0.6 just to... Takes you this long to queue it up and then this long to throw it, I think. I think that's how it works. I'm not sure. Decrease potion swap pre-fire time from 0.3 to 0.1 seconds. Decrease potion swap post-fire time from 0.3 to 0.1 seconds. That should be pretty instant. The travel speed and warning time of the lob potion is unchanged. Also, that's for the full... That's not even counting the travel time. Damn. That's just annoying. But yeah, this was a necessary change because it's incredibly clunky. And in fact, even though I didn't play her much, I did do a couple of duel videos on her, and I complained about that both of those videos. So it's a good thing they changed it, even though it's pretty late in the game with her for that. But Jormungandr cannot be stopped except by flat damage reduction. This stat, while feeling fair in most contexts, feels arbitrarily punishing on Jormungandr. Rather than buffing and nerfing Yorm around these items' prevalence in the meta, we've felt it made sense that his unique basics should ignore this stat, normalizing his strength when fighting different items and builds. In addition, we have seen him struggling as a whole and wanted to revert the damage taken debuff that we did some time ago. This should help him stay in the fray, especially when playing a true tank build. Jormungandr's basic text can be no longer affected by DR. A movable decreased damage taken debuff from 15% to 10%. Maybe I should quit saying DR and say damage reduction, because people say DR from diminishing returns when it applies to crowd control. But in context, you get what I'm saying. So whatever. Yeah, that's important. You can justify this in lore because he, is acid, bro. But it makes sense. That's a little unfair that a god that has low tick damage for his auto attacks is affected by DR. That's kind of rough, Anyway, Carnanos. With a new season, it's time for Carnanos to shift into the meta. Ha, that's a joke? Oh, a shifter of seasons. Right. Is one of a kind ability that felt largely underwhelming to put a point into. The level 1 effects didn't bring much impact, making some Carnanos players skip it for some time. By increasing the scaling on Summer Heat and the protection reduction from Autumn Decay, skilled Carnanos players will be able to feel the impact of utilizing how to speak, the impact of utilizing this ability well sooner into the game. Summer Heat increased scaling 5 to 10%, from 5 to 10%. Autumn Decay, decreased protection debuff from 5 to 25, reduced protections to 10 to 26, increased duration from 5 to 7 seconds. Ta-da! I would contend that this god wasn't necessarily out of the meta. I just don't know that there are that many proficient Carnanos players. I could be off base with that, but in my estimation, he was still a pretty strong character. But anyway, Odin and that god both had a similar rework cycle. Rework to feel strong. Got many nerfs, and then since we have been trying to buff them back into a healthy spot, while his ultimate punishes those who leave early in situations where players can stay in the ring. There isn't much of a penalty encouraging escape. A consistent duration combined with a power reduction aura will bring Odin's Ring of Spears to a similar use case as his old version, but with all the strengths of his rework. It's hard to say fast. Change duration from 4 to 6 seconds to 5 seconds at all ranks. Enemies inside the ring now have their power reduced by 15%. This goddess that we cannot say similarly gained a strong amount of utility, but after the nerfs it ended up feeling a bit lackluster. Rather than continuing to bring up her damage, we wanted to bring some strength back to dispel magic. She will now have more control in the late game with a stronger slow and shield to stay in the fight. Dispel magic, increase slow from 20% at all ranks to 30%, increase health shield from 50 to 230 to 50 to 270. And with that, that's going to do it for patch 8.2 and the 8.1 bonus notes. Goddess of the Salt Sea, Tiamat. Like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed that. Leave a comment down below if you want, as usual. Tell me what you like in the updates, or tell me what you don't. It's up to you. And hopefully we will get Tiamat gameplay sometime this week. No word on when the PTS is up, so it remains to be seen. And with that, I will see you guys next time for some more Smite. Have a good one.